Early on in the LEGO Sonic theme, I expressed my distaste for LEGO's decision to give us a random Knuckles mech that wasn't from any of the games. And LEGO has done it again this summer with the August 1st release of the Shadow Mech set. For a theme with such limited sets, it's annoying that they resort to making up their own creations like this mech. However, there are things from the game that I appreciate in here. So is this a good set? Well, right away, I'm telling you, at $50, that's pretty steep for a set that has 374 pieces. This was sent to me early by LEGO, but all opinions are my own. There is stuff from the games in this set, like the Shadow minifigure specifically based off of one of his Doom powers, which is the Doom Wing design, and how they build that up is really clever and I quite respect it. They use this piece right here, which I knew initially as the Gambit card holding piece, but to get it in this translucent black, it's only come in one other set, which was the Harry Potter Corners Pixie set. So that's actually a pretty hard to get piece, and it looks fantastic. I love trans black pieces, and each of these parts are clipped on right here, so you get some movement individually there. They do a good job replicating the design from the game. And those are just attached at their base poles to one of these 1x2s with the holes in it, which is attached with one of those neck holder connections. It would have been really nice to see that in a different color. I mean, we just got that for the first time in a different color. Well, we're getting it in August with that Hubble telescope set. In that set, it's white. It would have been cool to get that in black in this set because looking from the front here, it looks like Shadow's head is floating. And the Shadow minifigure on its own has a new face print. That is the third face variant for regular Shadow. I mean, there's 4 minifigure variants, including Super Shadow, and they all have angry faces, but hey, I like the expression of the open mouth design here. I guess that's good for brick filmers to have all those different variants. The design here is the same Shadow minifigure beyond that though, where you have some great dual molded legs and some side arm printing, also some printing down to the shoes of those legs. And I love the printing for the headpiece where you can see that there's some red all the way around, even at this back section, at the sides, and at the very top of the head itself. LEGO did a phenomenal job with this minifigure. So how is LEGO's OC mech? Well, judging it on its own, it's not a terrible mech. This set is weighed down by its price where, yeah, this looks like a mech for a set that would be $30, you know, with a side build included, like the gun mech in this set. But there are problems that I have with this, which are more indicative of problems with a lot of recent mechs. There's limited posability with the legs right here. There's no knee joints, and they're once again using those Ninjago little plate connection pieces that were introduced a couple years ago. I really wish we had posability there. We're always fixed in this position for the legs, and the only movement you get down under is with these feet right here, which have a new part color for this 2x4 newish joint piece, which I do like seeing that, a modified plate. I actually like how they do the front here, where you can see there's a little bit of a gap with that 1x2 jumper plate, and how they shape out the rest of the feet design. Identical on both sides. And then the only other movement found on the legs is with the hip joints right there. So you could get some posability there. Again, I just wish there was some posability on the knees. I like how they build up the side of the legs using a piece that is found in a lot of the coaster sets, and they just put 2 of those slope pieces right there. And that's present on both sides. Yeah, that upper half is the more interesting part of this mech build. First off, they have this motorcycle in the middle right here, which the motorcycle design is actually based off of the movies for Shadow's bike, where we got a more in-game variant closer, found in the original Shadow set from, what was it, like January 2024. This coming in black is not the first time we've gotten that piece in that color. It's been in a lot of sets, I think, since around the mid-2010s. And notice how the back has a Chaos Emerald being held on a configuration with a 1x2 jumper and a hold stud. But that just fits onto 2 1x2 jumpers in the middle there. And I kind of wish there was some type of play feature to actually launch this out, which is what I was expecting. But no, you just pick that up and remove it. It's not as intuitive as I wanted. I do like how they use 2 of these pieces, which aren't really common in white. And that could kind of look like it's locking the motorcycle in place by just pushing that down as it's clipped on. There's also some stud shooters at the top right here, which you get in that gold, and it's the modified one with the 1x2 base. And you know how that works. You just push down here, and I have forever lost that stud. Aw, crap. Anyways, at the back of that configuration, which I like how they use the mech kind of cockpit piece that you see with stuff like the Marvel mechs, they have a little section that you can put those Doom wings on. They're just like little clips at the bottom here. But that's a great way to actually fit the Shadow minifigure, because when you have the Doom wings on, it just kind of gets in the way of these spikes at the back. Which I like how those spike pieces are attached with a miniature ball joint, so you can kind of position them as you like. And it's nice to get those in that black coloring. Finally, there's the build for the arms, which are the same build inverted on both sides. The movement we have there is with those shoulder joints at the top, once again hidden by those cockpit pieces. And also with these hinge 1x2 connector pieces. So you get some movement at the elbows right there. And then at the very end, I like how they use this ring piece on both sides to kind of illustrate the cuffs that are on Shadow right there. That's actually some clever part usage. And inside those, you can see there's a miniature ball joint for those hands. And the hands themselves have two clipped on little fingers right there, the Exoforce robot arms. And it holds on to these sword pieces, which are the same build on both sides. The sword piece is actually clipped on in between those two fingers to that modified 1x2 plate with the handle design. So you could actually get some movement moving that left and right. And what I find interesting is that at the end here, they use this newish piece, which was recently used with that creepy Yoda statue's eyes. That's the first time we're getting it in a pearl gold, so that's really nice. But yeah, these have a nice blade. They've been used for plenty of LEGO Ninjago mechs. Anyways, that's it for the Shadow Mech build. Just a couple of fun poses. You know, I gotta test that posability to the limits. The design of the gun trooper is okay for replicating this design from the video games. Like, this is actually something found in the games, unlike the other mech of this set. I do think that they have too much light gray showing through, which is just an effect of LEGO not recoloring the 1x2 modified plate with the cup that receives the joint. And that's prominent on the arms right there, as well as on the legs, you can see at the bottom. And then at the hips as well, that's a different version that has the joint, or sorry, the cup in the middle of the joint. But yeah, that just, it's kind of an eyesore if you ask me, and there's really no light gray in-game for this specific mech. So that's quite annoying. There's also like some missing orange on the head right there. But they do have the orange parts that are like on the knees right there and things like that. And there's actually some posability with the knees where you can see this has a hinge connection. So that's a little bit more posable in that section than the Shadow Mech. And just like the Shadow Mech, you have those joints at the hips. So you can get independent movement on both of those. Also with the feet. And then with the shoulders right there, as well as the arms, which this one has a different arm build. One of them is just a little arm right here, which almost looks a little bit pathetic, honestly, with just this clipped part. But then the other one has a stud shooter. And you can see this is the gunmetal gray version instead of the gold one that you see on the Shadow Mech. Of course, how that works, you just push down there. Hey, I didn't lose the stud this time. That's actually pretty good. Usually that just goes flying across the room. I do like how they do the head right here. It's pretty cute if you ask me. And aside from missing the orange part, I do like how they do the head. It is clipped on with one of those like T little rail pieces. So you get some movement all around like this. And you could also move it up and down a bit. So that's pretty cool as well. There's actually details at the back. There's a Chaos Emerald at the underside right here. Also, if you notice, there's another miniature ball joint that controls the whole lower half of this mech. So that's pretty cool. And then I like how they have the detail of still replicating an arm right here, even if it's covered by the design of the blaster. So overall, I like the design of the Shadow Mech more than that Knuckles mech. I think this just looks cooler, to be frank. But I still am not sold, especially with this $50 price. I wish they got rid of that part and just released everything else in this set, because even down to the motorcycle, that's relevant. Like I said, it's more based off of the movie and it's not like one-to-one. It's missing like coloring and stuff like that. But this would have made a solid like $15 set, just like Shadow, the Doom Wing power, and then this gun mech. But you add in this mech and the design of that feels altogether like a $35 set. But no, this is $50, which feels like a highway robbery. Now, I do like the new Shadow minifigure with that Doom Wing edition, even if the Doom Wing piece isn't exactly exclusive, but we do have a design for Shadow's face that's exclusive. And the gun mech, solid, maybe a bit too much light gray showing and missing some coloring here and there. With all things considered, I'd rate this a very generous 6 out of 10. It's definitely closer to a 5 than a 7. I don't think it's worth that $50 price. I wish the price of this was adjusted to $35 and I would have been much more on board with just everything that's included in terms of value. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree? Do you also think that this is better than the Knuckles mech itself? Because personally, I like that set a little bit better because I really like the Master Emerald build. But the best part is that it had Rouge the Bat. It was one of my favorite characters. That's the only time we ever saw that character. That elevates it over this set. Subscribe here for more LEGO reviews and honest LEGO takes. Thank you again to LEGO for sending me this early, and I'll see you later. Peace out. Bye.